Yo, what's good, boys? We are back at it again with another MLB The Show 25 video for you guys, and today we are updating our outfielders tier list. So we got a good amount of new content since the last time I did one of these, and honestly, hopefully 2 days from now on the 3rd, we'll be getting a Lightning Juan Soto, which would be amazing. But we got like the new Sammy Sosa, some new Tops Now cards. I don't even know if I've done one of these since Evan Carter's came out. So we've got a lot of ground to touch on. So if you enjoy the content, like, subscribe, all that. And let's hop into it. So Ted, S tier, enough said. Pretty much perfect quirks, basically perfect stats other than like power left. And then a really good swing. Would he be in like my favorite 3 outfielders for the year? Probably not, but for where the game's at right now, he's an absolute stud. Clemente, C tier. I think his swing's pretty slept on. And I think, I think the average baseline for like a bad swing has kind of jumped forward now to where there's not that many swings that you use and you're just like, oh, this is gross. Whereas like when he was the NL Collection Award 3-4 years ago, he did kind of have that going for him. But now, like, I feel like it's pretty baseline. He's got good quirks. I wouldn't even necessarily say he has a bad swing. It's just he's not great defensively, which is weird for a Clemente card. And that's just kind of what the Moonshot program did for us. Same for Lou Brock. I do like his swing a lot, and honestly, I'm gonna put him B tier because I would rather run him than this Tony Gwynn. I tried this Tony Gwynn. In theory, like, he's got 100 of every hitting stat and like every single hitting quirk. He just did not generate exit velos for me. I've heard people say they love that card. I think all of these cards are just behind the power curve at this point anyway, so I wouldn't want to be using any of them. But if I was, I think I'd probably take Lou Brock at this point. Jared, more or less just same spot. I mean, he's a center fielder that's not super fast. It really depends on where I end up putting Sizemore, because I just view Sizemore as like a better Jared. But we'll see. Jo Adell, super mid at this point, C tier. I mean, that card was mid when he came out, to be honest. Santi, I'm gonna put Santi C tier for this reason. Number one, I think you can just have better defensive outfielders out there at this point. And number two, circle changes will bend over a switch hitter, like destroy them if you're on even Hall of Fame now, much less Legend. I cannot imagine this card with like his like 85 clutch or whatever, and like 70 something contact. That PCI would be so small, it'd be ridiculous. Yeah, he's still a switch hitter. Yeah, the swing's still good. But that's why I put him in the infielders tier list higher than where he's at here. Jock, first candidate in just DH tier. He should never be in the field. Just a straight DH, usually like a platoon DH. Has a good swing, has some okay quirks, but more of a DH. Honestly, this Ted's almost more of a DH. Because he's got 48 speed. I think 48 speed qualifies you for being a DH at this point. Whereas like earlier in the year, you could live with 48 speed in the outfield. Now I feel like, yeah. Jason, easy A tier. Most people that have this card have also put parallels on him, so he's even better than what it shows. So he's an absolute stud. Nothing wrong with him. There's people still running him in their lineups right now. Chili Dog fits in A tier. I've heard so much mixed feedback with this card. I didn't like him when I used him, but I didn't use him for very long. And then I've heard people say that they agree with me and his swing's trash. And I've heard people say he has one of the best swings in the game. So I'm not sure how much of that is just placebo because he's a switch hitter. But when I used him, I didn't necessarily love him. But in previous years, I've always loved like his golds and stuff in BR. But obviously that's on All-Star where pretty much every card does decent. Yordi, I think A tier if you just want a lefty in the outfield. You don't have to DH this one. He's not super fast, but at least his reaction and his arm strength is like really high. So I would not call him like DH material. If you play this card in the field, he's at least playable. Ryan Ludwig. I've heard people gas this card. I think his swing is terrible. I think it's awful. The only real exposure I got to him was doing his moment in the summer program, but even that took longer than it should have with how many quirks and the just stats that he has. So I don't like this card, but you know, I've heard people say he's Zeus. I have not seen it with that card. I've also not ran into him at all online. So Hap, A tier. Perfect. He's almost perfect. It's just, dude, the power is really bad. Like, you're going to get scammed. If he had like every single hitting quirk, I could maybe see an S tier. You know, if he gave him every hitting quirk and then super fractured him, maybe. As is with the power deficiencies, I view him and Jason as pretty similar. Jason's probably going to give you more home runs. Hap will probably hit for a higher average for you and not play terrible outfield defense the way Jason will. So I view them as pretty similar. Tommy Pham. This is a card that shocked me. Stats wise, he's not anything to write home about, but just honestly has a decent swing, which is surprising. Tommy Pham has had one of the most disgusting swings in the game for years now. And now he's got like a nice little stride into a slap swing, and it's pretty inoffensive, and I don't really mind it. Is he, you know, a premier outfielder? No, but his swing definitely makes him not as bad as he once was. Jarren Duran. In left field, I don't know if I would call him S tier, left or right. But in center, I would say, yeah. If you just want like one of those lefty speed demons that you play in like a secondary of center field, he's one of them. It's like him, Corbin Carroll, Evan Carter, take your pick. And I think Jarren probably has the best swing out of those. It's either him or Evan Carter. But I think Corbin Carroll has them all beat on like quirks and stuff. So you kind of pick your poison. And I like Jarren Duran. When I used him, he was really solid. Jim Rice. This is a card I haven't used. I don't see any reason he would be below A tier. He would have to have a horrendous swing, but even then he has crazy stats and pretty much every hitting quirk. So maybe I need to educate myself on Jim Rice's career because the game thinks he's Zeus. So I guess I need to go look up and see how he was as a ball player. But looks like a good card. I can't, you know, every time he's gotten a card in the past, the swing's just been kind of mid. But now he's got like every quirk and really good stats. He is probably overpriced because he's a BR card, so he's like 80K. So there's probably just more affordable options, or you'd like to put those stubs towards like Jarren Duran or Ted Williams. But it seems like a pretty solid overall card. Griffey, pretty dated at this point. Because really, if you're using Griffey, it's for the swing and the quirks because the power isn't great. The defense is far from great. So if you're using Griffey, it's just for the swing for the most part. Victor Scott. F tier is probably harsh, but I just want to emphasize that this archetype of center fielder has fallen off the map. Victor Scott, PCA, guys that just can't hit, but you put them out there to play defense. There's options now that bridge the gap way better than what they do. Bernie, I think he's a strict DH because his only outfield position is center field, which means you're playing him out of position with already bad fielding. So, I mean, he's just going to be errors galore in like a corner spot. And you probably don't want him taking every at-bat anyway because he's got like 70 power against righties. 60, 65, 70, somewhere in that range. So, not great. Now, if you platoon him with a guy like Jock, obviously that helps a lot. But you would be doing that at DH, I think. And hopefully not in your outfield. Buxton is pretty borderline because there's 1,000 rated players that love him. I think I've never really loved Buxton cards. Quirks wise, he's pretty crazy. Just general stat wise, he's really not. He's like 100 of every hitting stat, and then, you know, subpar defensively, where he's kind of fast. I think he's 89 speed if you got him super fractured, but the reaction's not there. The arm strength isn't there. So he's far from like a card like Beltran in center field. And then you're probably running him out of position, so he's going to make some errors. It's probably like a 1 in I don't know. I would have to like poll guys that have actually used it. It's probably like 1 out of 50. I've seen people just like overrun balls and do weird stuff when they're out of position. So I think there's a very small chance each time a ball's hit to him that he's going to get pulled into one of those animations. Mike Cameron. Honestly, C tier. Like, for this card to be this overall, just not good. I've never really liked his swing. I don't think his quirks are crazy. I think he has one of either Dead Red or Breaking Ball. But every card he's ever gotten, I've never really loved. I think he got a World Series reward either last year or 2 years ago, and then he got some card last year. So he's always okay. I view him and like Luis Robert as like pretty similar cards, to be honest. Springer, A tier. I think swing wise he is better than Buxton in my opinion. Stat wise he's worse than Buxton, worse than Jim Rice, so I think sandwiching him between those two is probably where I'd put him, where probably wouldn't run him in center field at this point, but if he's your right fielder, like, he's fine. It's inoffensive. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. Cedric Mullins, I don't think this card's been good since he came out. I mean, he has basically like no useful quirks. He doesn't even hit that well, and he is a minus defensive center fielder. You can play him in a corner spot, obviously, but even then, like, just give me Jordan at that point. If you're telling me I can put a minus defensive left fielder out there and he's going to have to hit lefty-lefty 2/3 of the time, give me Jordan. Give me Jordan. Sizemore, I'm going to put in this group. I think he's firmly behind all these guys, but he's still a good option. I don't mind him. It's really easy to run his team captain boost, where with the full, like, Guardians, like, Naylor boost and Miller boost, he's easily S tier. I think he's, like, over 105 of every hitting stat. And then it might help his defense out a little bit. It might give him like arm strength or something. I'm not entirely sure what Naylor gives. But he gets really good with the Guardians boost. Louis Bob, top of B tier. Honestly, a lot of people have enjoyed this card so far. I think his swing is a little better, where it was genuinely one of the worst in the game for like the last 2 years. He's cool. Like, he's cool. The problem is like the 80 contact. So if you're facing like a lefty that has a circle change, like Tariq Skubal or something, then not only is that 92-mile-an-hour slider probably going to jam him because his swing isn't great, and the outlier fastball is going to jam him, then you're throwing like away circle changes and just shrinking his PCI to a ridiculously small amount. So not super fun there. Willie Mays, I think B tier. I think he's just overpriced for what he is, just because he's a chase card. Has a lot of good hitting quirks, but then like his hitting stats aren't crazy. Defensively, he's not crazy. And I think his swing's just bad. Like, I would rather use Byron Buxton, a guy with a consensus plus swing, actually every single quirk you would want, and then just is faster. So that's the direction I'd probably go for center fielders. I view them as pretty similar. Everybody's favorite knuckleballer here, Jack Caglione. I want to put him DH here because I know his defense is actually really bad, but I'm just going to give him C. I think his swing's pretty good. I think his hitting stats aren't bad. He's probably got an average of like 100 hitting. The problem is he's pretty poor defensively. He's the equivalent of, like, the whole reason I included him is because he's like the Christian Moore of the infielders tier list, where if you're new, if you're like just on the game for like 5 minutes, you can go get Jack Caglione. And he will at least do a job for you in like right field. Another right fielder, Roman Anthony, stud. If you use this card early, honestly, this card's probably B tier. To be honest, I would probably rather use him than Cedric Mullins. I can't lie. If you use the prospect card at the start of the year, you know his swing is fire. You know he plays like he has more power than he actually does. And this card actually has power. So it's really just about the defense. This card's actually slower than the prospect card that we got, which is a little unfortunate, but he's also a corner outfielder now. So it's not necessarily the end of the world that he is a little bit slower. Evan Carter, S tier. He's up there with Jarren Duran. I think these would be my choice options. And then I think it'd be weird to have all three of them in S tier. So I think I'm going to drop Corbin Carroll. I think he's just aging a little worse, where a lot of you guys that are using Corbin Carroll probably have him super fractured. So if you want to take that into account, yeah, he's probably equal with these cards. But also, I think if you put parallels on these cards, they will be better. Like, Evan Carter is a stud. I've actually been playing a good amount of co-op recently. And I already knew the gold Evan Carter from the start of the year was him. But it just reinforces for me that, like, this Evan Carter's a monster. Like, his swing's great. He can go lefty. And then just really fast. Not the best reaction, not the best arm strength, but he's just really fast. And he's actually a primary center fielder, so he's not losing any reaction as compared to the other two. Nicky. I mean, realistically, I should rank him at DH, but I think he's just borderline enough to where he won't be so bad in the outfield to where you could feasibly play him in right field. Would not move him to, like, left, or I don't know if he has any secondaries, but I would not move him around. I'd leave him in right field, or just strictly DH him. And I feel like Judge is kind of the same way, where I've seen Judge have good days in the outfield. I've seen him have bad days. But I think he's consensus more of like a DH, where if you're platooning him and Jock, you've got a pretty good platoon on your hands. So I'd probably do that. Acuna might get a little pushback for this one. I'm gonna put him next to Buxton, where another like minus defensive outfielder. His reaction's bad. He's not fast. And then hitting wise, not the craziest stats in the world. Like, the live series is pretty comparable, and he just has no quirks. I don't know why they robbed my boy of all of his quirks. If this card had dead red, first pitch hitter, you don't even have to give him like dead red and breaking ball, just one of them, and like first pitch hitter, maybe bad ball hitter, something like that, he would be an absolute stud. But he doesn't. So maybe the live series will catch up soon. I don't know. But just unfortunate how they did my boy. Honestly, one of the most overpriced cards in the game right now, for what he is. Slangin' Sammy. I think he's A tier. He's like an upgraded Springer in my opinion, because you're going to be running Springer in right field anyway, where Sammy just has like every single hitting quirk. He's a little deficient against righties, I believe, where he's like 92, like 100. So that's kind of tough, but at least then you don't have, like, all you gotta worry about is away sliders. I think it's way easier to worry about away sliders than it is literally any circle change that a lefty would be throwing you. So James Wood, is he S tier? He just gives you like way different stuff. I mean, I think if you're looking at it from the lens of not having Ted Williams, because most people don't, then I think he's S tier. Maybe you can make the argument you'd rather just run like Evan Carter and Jarren Duran in your outfield, and I think a lot of free teams probably are doing that. But I do think, assuming you have like no lefties in your infield, I do think I'd rather run James Wood than everybody other than like maybe Byron. So maybe, okay, maybe that pushes him down to A tier, but it's like these two are like super borderline, and it's probably just like personal preference. Harper, easy S tier. He's like the right field version of Ted Williams. Do you want to run both of them in your outfield? Probably not, because that's going to be a pretty poor defensive outfield. Berkman, I think, fits in here, where I would prefer, I mean, this is my outfield, right? So Ted left, Carlos center, and then Berkman in right, just because he's a better defender than Harper, and he's a switch hitter. And Berkman actually has like every single quirk in the game, so he's got that over Harper as well. But a lot of people are really enjoying that Harper. And then I think that's our outfielders. So pretty solid little list. I think the only guys that are like debatable in this tier is like Buxton and Wood, who I already pointed out. Some people will probably say Jordan's S tier, but also you could just like be using the live series right now, and depending on his inside edge, he's better. So that's kind of a weird argument there. And then Jason Dominguez, I think, is still really good. Like, there's nothing wrong with this card. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, all that. Till next time. Peace.